It's interesting. Atheism comes into rather a bad press, and I suppose I'd rather describe myself as a humanist. I don't believe in God. I don't believe there is a God. If I were to believe in a God, I would believe in gods. I think monotheism is the really ghastly thing. That is the absolutely staggering, to me, misapprehension. I can perfectly see why anybody might imagine that each thing that grows, each phenomenon that accompanies us on our journey through life, the sky, the mountains, spirits of nature, I can imagine why man would wish to endow them with an inner something, an inner animus that they would call the God of that thing. I can see that. It's a beautiful and charming way of looking at it, and I can understand the Greek idea that there are these principles of lightning or of war or of wisdom, and that to embody them, to personify them into Athena or Ares or whichever god you want makes enormous sense. But to say that there is one only God who made it all and who is, that is just, what? Why? Who said? Where? Come on. And I love how when people watch, I don't know, a David Attenborough or a Discovery Planet type thing, where you see the absolute phenomenal majesty and complexity and bewildering beauty of nature, and you stare at it, and somebody next to you goes, and how can you say there's no God? Look at that. And then 5 minutes later, you're looking at the life cycle of a parasitic worm whose job is to bury itself in the eyeball of a little lamb and eat the eyeball from inside while the lamb dies in horrible agony. And then you turn to them and say, yeah, where is your God now? I mean, you can't just say there's a God because the world is beautiful. You have to account for bone cancer in children. You have to account for the fact that almost all animals in the wild live under stress with not enough to eat and will die violent and bloody deaths. There is not any way that you can just choose the nice bits and say that means there is a God and ignore the true fact of what nature is. The wonder of nature must be taken in its totality. And it is a wonderful thing. It is absolutely marvelous. And the idea that an atheist or a humanist, if you want to put it that way, doesn't marvel and wonder at reality, at the way things are, is nonsensical. The point is we wonder all the way. We don't just stop and say, that which I cannot understand I will call God, which is what mankind has done historically. That's to say, God was absolutely everything 1,000 or 2,000 years ago because we understood almost nothing about the natural world. So it could all be God. And then as we understood more, God receded and receded and receded. So suddenly now he's barely anywhere. He's just in those things we don't understand, which are important. But I think it just is such an insult to humanity. And the Greeks got it right. The Greeks understood perfectly that if there were divine beings, they are capricious, unkind, malicious mostly, temperamental, envious, and mostly deeply unpleasant. Because that you can say, well, yes, all right, if there's going to be God or gods, then you have to admit that they're at the very least capricious. They're certainly not consistent. They're certainly not all-loving. I mean, really, it's just not good enough.